Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Our first witness is Pamela.
That's
Is
correct.
she? Pamela.
Please state your full name
Pamela Pennycook.
and repeat after me. I do solemnly, sincerely
I do solemnly, sincerely,
and truly declare and affirm
and truly declare and affirm
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Pamela, you're here to talk about your infection with hepatitis C.
That's right.
You have spina bifida,
Yes,
and when you were 11 years old, you underwent spinal fusion surgery.
that's correct, yes.
What's your recollection of what happened?
Well, I remember waking up in the recovery room and I noticed that there was the drip set up with the saline and also the blood. I'd never had a blood transfusion before, so it was a bit of a shock seeing that for the first time. And then by the time I went back on the ward, the blood drip had been taken down and it was just the other drip that was up.
Before the operation, are you aware of whether your parents were warned that you might need a transfusion?
Not at all. They weren't told.
And after the operation, were your parents told that you had had a blood transfusion?
No, they weren't told.
Please can we have document 2242002, please, Paul? And if we look at the top, we can see requirements and that 4 were being delivered, 4 were held on reserve, and a total of 8 units of whole blood were ready for the operation.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we go to the bottom of the page, part C, we can see serial number in order of transfusion, and there are 3 numbers.
That's right.
The bottle numbers of the blood that you were transfused with.
Yes.
Can you tell us how you came to receive this document?
When I was going through my treatment at the Western General, my consultant...
For the hepatitis C?
For the hepatitis C, yes. So it was many years later. My consultant gave me a copy of this form and said to me, keep it safe. You're going to need this in the future.
Are there any other records of you having had a transfusion?
No, just this one.
And on the same day that the consultant gave you this letter, she also wrote to your GP.
Yes, that's right.
And what did that letter say about your transfusion?
That there was no record that I'd had a transfusion.
So the day you were given this, there was also a letter to the GP saying there was no transfusion.
Record.
As part of your spina bifida, you had sensory loss in your right leg and right foot.
That's correct, yes.
You had repeated infections and ulceration of the leg and the foot.
That's correct.
And ultimately, you underwent a below-knee amputation.
That's right, when I was 19.
Recently, you've wondered whether your infection with hepatitis C contributed to those difficulties as a teenager.
Yes.
Can you tell us why?
It was the fact that my amputation on the form, it was due to recurring infections and ulcers. So I asked the question because I thought it could have contributed to me losing my leg. The fact that I wasn't able to fight infections. So my consultant, I took all my medical records because she couldn't get access to them, and she went through them and she said, although it's not the sole reason, it may be a contributing factor that you lost your leg. But she said, I'm not an immunologist, so, you know, I can't make a definite decision on that, but she said it may have been a contributing factor.
Nobody's very sure
No.
what impact the hepatitis C had on those
Yes.
infections, but they may have had an impact, and you're concerned that they did have.
Yes, that's right.
In 2005, you were diagnosed with osteoporosis,
That's correct.
and your GP decided to do some blood tests.
Yes.
Can you tell us what those first tests showed?
They showed that I had an issue with my liver function, so I was asked to keep a drink diary, and then I would be retested again to see, you know, if there was any change to that. So, which I did. I went back and got the second lot of blood tests.
So you've had the second lot of blood tests, and what happened then?
Well, I was sitting at work one day, and I worked at that time on a telephony role, so I just thought, on my break, I'll phone the GP to get the results. And the receptionist said, yes, you're Hep C positive. And I said, what do you mean? And there was a pause, and she said, I don't think I was meant to tell you. And I said, well, I need to speak to somebody. I need to see a doctor. Because previously I'd worked in a drug and alcohol team, HIV/AIDS team, so I had an understanding of what hepatitis C was. She couldn't give me an appointment with the doctor. So finally, my GP came on the phone and said, you know, you shouldn't have been told this information over the phone. Come in and see me tomorrow. So I just broke down in tears in the middle of the office space. My manager took me away. I explained, you know, the telephone conversation, and then I just had to go home. So my manager had to go and get my bag. You know, colleagues were looking around thinking, what's going on here? And then I just went home and went on the internet basically to get as much information as I could about it.
What's been the impact on your mental health of the way you were told that you had hepatitis C?
There was no professionalism there, you know. It was just so matter of fact. I mean, I know that she realised she shouldn't have told me, but to get a shock like that over the phone is unforgivable. It should never have happened.
You've said you went straight onto the internet when you got home.
Yes.
What did you find?
Well, I was reading about things. When I die, my body wouldn't be dressed. It would go into a hazardous waste bag. It'd be lead-lined coffins, and I just thought, this is my life.
You saw your GP the next day?
Yes.
On the 22nd of December 2005.
Mm-hmm.
What did they tell you?
They told me that I would be referred to the Western to discuss treatments, you know, but that was a long process to get to that. And then she said that I needed to get in touch with my previous sexual partners to make them aware that I had the Hep C.
Did she explain how you might have come to be infected?
I had said that I'd had a blood transfusion in the early 80s because I knew from my understanding in my previous job that the blood transfusions in the early 80s could have been a transmission route.
You were referred to the Western General.
That's right.
But there was no appointment available until February 2006.
That's right.
What happened in that interim period for you?
I found it very difficult to come to terms with my diagnosis. My mum and dad found it difficult because they were saying, well, how do you get it? And I was saying, well, through blood transfusions. And they're saying, but you've never had a blood transfusion. How else can you get it? And I I said, well, intravenous drug use, tattoos, and they said, but you've never had a tattoo. But it was the unsaid thing, well, you know, have you taken drugs? So it was a year later that I got the proof that I'd had a blood transfusion. So in that time, my parents had this doubt. It's how could I have received this infection?
When you first attended the hospital, Western General, can you tell us what it was like attending the clinic?
I was just totally out with my comfort zone. The fact it was called the Regional Infectious Diseases Unit. You know, it's not the most welcoming of places. You know, the first time I went there I got lost, but I was too embarrassed to ask for directions. There was prisoners there with their guards, obviously getting their treatment. And I just thought, this is my world now. It was very, very frightening.
When you got to the hospital, you've said that you feel you were given the information you needed
Yes.
about hepatitis C.
Yes.
And it came at the right time.
Yes.
For you
it
to
did.
understand the illness.
Yes.
Can you tell us how you reacted to finding out that you had hepatitis C?
Well, to be honest, I went off the rails. I started drinking too much, and
You ended up pregnant
that's right.
in circumstances that weren't ideal,
That's right.
and you decided you had to terminate the pregnancy.
Yes, because I knew there was a risk of passing it on to the unborn child. I decided that was the only option for me at that time. And plus I knew I was going to be going through treatment as well, that I had to terminate the pregnancy.
Can you tell us a little bit of what the impact of that decision has had on you in terms of your mental health?
Even now, I've never been a mum. So things like Mother's Day is a trigger for me. And I've just got this emptiness.
You've only recently felt able to tell your family about the termination.
That's right.
Can you tell us why?
I needed to tell them because I knew this was part of my story. And it also had an impact. My sister had her baby the time of my termination, so I went from having the termination to go and seeing her with her new son.
She had her first child in the same place on the same day. And for you, that's been incredibly difficult.
Extremely difficult.
To try and have any relationship with your nephew.
Yes, and I didn't want to take away from, you know, the family's joy, this baby, and from taking it away from my mum and dad, because that was their first and only grandchild. So I just kept it secret.
When you were diagnosed with hepatitis C, did you tell any friends at that point
No.
about the diagnosis?
There was only 6 people that knew up until 2 months ago, when I felt able to tell friends and family.
Why didn't you feel able to tell friends?
I know that there's a stigma about hepatitis C, and you can't untell people if you don't get the right reaction that you're looking for. So it was at the time I thought it was easier not to tell, but now that I've shared my secret, it's such a relief.
You've told them because you knew you were coming to give
Yes,
evidence.
that's right.
And what was their reaction?
Totally supportive. You know, they were behind me 100%.
You started treatment for the hepatitis in August 2006.
That's right.
And that was with interferon and ribavirin.
That's right.
What side effects did you have?
They were horrendous. Mood swings, which led to me not being able to, I wasn't allowed to then be alone with my new nephew because my sister didn't want to risk, and I totally understand that. Lack of sleep, insomnia, loss of appetite, depression, and then really dark moods. You know, didn't want to be with anybody. So it was very hard. And I'd met John just 6 weeks before I started my treatment. So that came out the blue. So it was hard to start a new relationship while I was going through the treatment. Luckily, John's been so supportive, didn't judge me in any way, and has always been there for me. He had 2 young sons at the time, so it was hard to start the relationship with them because there would be days where I wouldn't want to get out of bed, so we couldn't go swimming or go for days out. So I was letting them down as well, so it was hard to maintain relationships.
You were off work for about 5 months.
5 months, that's right.
And as you say, you met John, and you and he decided that he should have a vasectomy.
Yeah.
Why was that?
John knew the trauma that I'd gone through with having my termination and the impact on my mental health. So we decided, you know, that was the decision for us. And plus, with being on the treatment, I couldn't get pregnant while I was on the treatment or 6 months after. So that was the decision that was made.
You've said in your statement that closed the door on you having children of your own.
Yes.
And that, combined with the termination, has impacted your mental health very significantly.
Yes, extremely so.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Or would you rather I read that part of your statement?
No, it's okay. On Mother's Day, I think it was about 3 years ago, I just thought, I can't go on with my life. I'm never going to achieve what I really want. So I took off my wedding rings and left my little dog and just disappeared. John ended up phoning my mum, and my mum left me messages because I was going to take my own life. So my mum kept phoning and saying, please don't do anything silly. We love you. Please come home. So the next day, the GP told me to go to the local psychiatric hospital for an emergency assessment, which I did.
And since then, you've had long periods of counselling?
Yes, because alcohol's been an issue for me. So the alcohol counselling has taken months and months at a time to complete.
But you've described in your statement, it's an ongoing battle.
Yes.
With excessive drinking and depression.
Yes. Although I must say, since this process, I feel I'm able to control it because I've got a purpose, which is today, and there's no secrecy now. Because even a friend said to me last night that I was glowing and I looked so relaxed. I hadn't seen me like that for a long time.
You underwent the treatment for the hepatitis C and successfully cleared the virus.
That's right.
And after that, you returned to work.
Yes.
Your colleagues, other than your boss, weren't aware of why you'd been off.
That's right.
And what was their reaction when you returned?
Well, they actually thought I'd either had cancer or I'd been in alcohol rehab. And that was hard because I'm normally quite an open person. So having to keep that secret, they were obviously really concerned about me, but I couldn't be honest with them as to what was going on, because again, due to the stigma, I just couldn't do it.
Since your treatment, what's your physical health been like?
Well, I cleared the virus. I get tired. I've difficulty in picking up, new tasks at work. So I've cut back on my hours there, which has helped. But it could be that I'm just getting older. But yeah, touch wood.
But thankfully, there was very limited damage to your liver.
Yes,
So
that's right.
in terms of your liver, there's not been as much concern.
That's right. Yep.
Have you had any monitoring of your liver since completing your treatment?
No. And that's one of the things, you get so much medical support when you're going through the treatment. I think I had a 6 months test and an annual test, and then that's it. It's like, there you go, you're fine. And I think it would be useful to have some sort of follow-up, even annual tests, just to make sure everything's as it should be.
You've received payments from the Skipton Fund
That's right.
and from the Scottish Infected Blood Support Scheme.
Yes.
How did you find the process of applying for that?
I found it relatively easy, but then I'm used to filling out forms with work and things like that. So I found it an easy process. And then obviously the consultant had to complete part of the form, and that's where the copy of the blood transfusion report came in. So it was a straightforward process for myself.
Those are the questions I have for you. Is there anything else you would like to say?
I'd just like to thank John for all his support. Without him, I wouldn't be here today at all. And also my stepson, Duncan. They've both been a tower of strength. I'd also like to thank my family for their love and support throughout the years. I know it's not been easy for them. I've got an amazing group of friends who have just rallied around me superbly over the last couple of months. I'd also like to thank my employer, Lloyd's Banking Group, because from the day I was diagnosed through my treatment and to support me here today, they've been amazing. I know that a lot of people don't have that support with their employers, so I really do support them. I'd like to thank Thompson's solicitors for all their help and guidance. It's been invaluable. And I'd like to wish the inquiry well as you go round the other cities to hear other people's stories.
I'm just going to turn and ask Mr O'Neill and Mr Dawson if there's anything they want me to raise.
Thank you.
Just one point that they'd like me to raise with you. You found out about something called C+ counselling.
Yes.
Can you tell us how you found out about that and what it is?
Yep. I went online to look for local support groups, and they were based in Leith at the time, and they were amazing. I got to see them almost straight away, and they gave me useful advice, lifestyle advice about preparing for treatment and about the Skipton Fund. But they didn't know anybody at the time else who'd got it through contaminated blood. So there was nobody else that I could speak to that had similar stories. But yeah, they were absolutely
They
fantastic.
were a specialist hepatitis C counselling service.
Yes, in Edinburgh.
But it was that you found them,
Yes.
not that somebody signposted you
No,
to them.
I just went on the internet looking for local support groups.
So, do you have any?
No, I don't. But I do want to thank you for coming to tell us your very personal story. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, we'll take a break now until 11 o'clock.
Thank you.
11 o'clock.